At Fort Bragg, North Carolina, on a Tuesday morning in March of 1977, the air was cold enough to see your breath, and still enough to carry sound across 300 yards of open parade ground. The temperature at 0900 hours was 31 degrees. The sky was the color of old concrete. 2,000 soldiers had assembled in formation on the eastern quadrant of the base, not for ceremony, but because word had moved through the barracks the way word always moves among men who have nothing to prove and everything to demonstrate. Something was going to happen, something worth seeing. He was sitting on a folding metal chair near the back of the observation area, third row from the fence, wearing a denim jacket over a plain white undershirt and a dark cap pulled low over his brow. He had arrived 20 minutes early, alone, carrying nothing, no bag, no entourage, no warm-up. He had drunk a cup of black coffee from a paper cup and set the empty cup on the ground beside his boot. That was all. If you had walked past him without knowing, you would have seen a quiet man in his mid-30s with the build of someone who worked with his hands. You would not have looked twice. Nobody in that formation knew they were about to witness something that men in uniform would still be recounting 31 years later, at retirement dinners and barracks tables, and the kinds of gatherings where old soldiers finally tell the truth. In the next 47 seconds, in front of 2,000 trained military personnel, a man at the peak of his physical and professional life would learn a lesson about certainty that no amount of training had prepared him to receive. His name was Senior Chief Petty Officer Dale Rourke. He was 26 years old, 6 feet and 2 inches tall, and weighed 217 pounds of operational muscle built through 11 years of training that began when most men his age were still in high school. He had served 3 combat deployments. He held a second-degree black belt in judo, a first-degree black belt in Shotokan karate, and had trained under 2 instructors whose names were known to anyone serious about the art. He had not lost a sparring match in 4 years, not one. In 47 seconds, none of that would protect him. If you want to know what happened in those 47 seconds and what was said afterward that no one else was supposed to hear, stay with this until the end, because that part matters more than the fight itself. Rourke had been invited to Fort Bragg to conduct a hand-to-hand combat demonstration for a joint forces training weekend. This was not unusual. He had done demonstrations before. He was good at them. He had a quality that only certain men possess in front of crowds, the ability to look unhurried while being genuinely dangerous. He did not perform, he simply showed what was possible when the body was trained to its correct purpose. The morning schedule had him opening the session with a breakdown of close quarters disarmament. He had 6 training partners with him, all Navy personnel, all legitimate. The demonstration lasted 42 minutes, and it was, by every account from men present that day, exceptional. He moved with a precision that soldiers who had seen a great deal of real violence recognized immediately as the real thing. He was not demonstrating theory, he was demonstrating what he had used, modified and refined through actual operational experience. When he finished the formal portion, the formation did not simply applaud, they held a different kind of quiet. The quiet that means the message was received. It was in that quiet that Rourke made his first mistake. He took the microphone from the event coordinator when he should not have. He had something to say. Men who are very good at things often do. And to be fair to him, it did not begin as a provocation. It began as commentary. He spoke about the difference between what he called Hollywood martial arts and what he called functional combat reality. He said the gap between the two was wider than most people understood. He said that what audiences saw on film was choreography, and what choreography produced was confidence in movements that had never been tested. He was not wrong. The problem was what came next. He said a name. He said that Chuck Norris specifically represented everything he was describing, that the image sold to the public through film and television bore no resemblance to what would happen in a room with no cameras. He said this directly. He said it into a microphone. He said it in front of 2,000 people, some of whom already knew that the man in the denim jacket and the low cap, sitting in the third row near the fence, was not a stranger to this conversation. The tournament director, a retired Army Ranger named Colonel James Whitfield, who had refereed more serious competitions than most men had attended, set both hands flat on the table in front of him, and did not move them. A master sergeant named Harold Pruitt, who had trained in Okinawa for 3 years before his second tour, looked at the folding chair in the third row, and then looked back at the stage. He did not say anything. He picked up the coffee cup that had been sitting beside his knee and set it back down without drinking from it. A film stunt coordinator named Vic Rinaldi, who was on the base that day advising on a training film and who happened to know both men by reputation, stopped writing in the notebook he had been keeping throughout the morning session and held the pen above the paper without touching it. If you are watching this and you want to understand what was about to happen, subscribe now and tell us in the comments where you are watching from, because what Senior Chief Petty Officer Dale Rourke did not know, and what 2,000 people in formation were about to learn, is that the man he had just addressed by name in front of this crowd was sitting 30 feet away from him, and had heard every word, and had already decided what to do. He stood up without hurry. He did not stretch. He did not roll his neck. He did not bounce or shake his hands or perform the small theatrical preparations that fighters make when they want their preparation to be observed. He stood up the way a man stands up from a chair after a long wait at a train station. He reached up and removed the cap and folded it once and set it on the seat behind him. He did not fold it twice. Once was sufficient. He took off the denim jacket and laid it across the back of the chair with the same economy of motion. He was wearing the white undershirt, street shoes, no tape, no wrapping on the wrists or knuckles. He began to walk toward the stage. The recognition moved through the formation the way cold moves through water, not all at once, but in a current. The men in the front rows understood first, then the current moved backward, row by row, section by section, until it reached the man at the far end of the parade ground, who had only seen a small figure moving across open space toward the elevated platform. They leaned into whoever was beside them and said something in a low voice, and the man beside them turned to confirm it. And then neither of them said anything more. He has already lost. He just does not know it yet. Rourke saw him coming and did not change his posture. This was important, and it was noted by the men present who understood what it meant. He did not step back. He did not look to his training partners. He held the microphone a second longer and then set it down on the platform edge. He squared himself toward the approaching figure. He was being watched by 2,000 people, and he carried himself correctly. Whatever else would be said about Dale Rourke after that morning, no one said he was afraid. They met at a distance of 12 feet on the open ground in front of the platform's base. Rourke was the taller man by 4 inches, and heavier by 31 pounds. He had the advantage of age by 8 years. He had every measurable advantage that a room full of military personnel could be expected to recognize and evaluate. He stood with the specific stillness of a man who has sparred hundreds of times and knows how to read the moment before movement begins. Chuck Norris stopped 8 feet away. A fight is not two bodies colliding. It is a question asked through space about where the line is, and who understands the line more clearly. Every technique exists only in relation to distance. Every counter exists only in relation to timing. What an untrained eye sees as aggression is most often a poorly understood negotiation. What looks like speed is often simply a correct beginning. The man who controls the distance controls the conversation. The man who controls the conversation controls the outcome. Rourke had been trained in this. But knowing a principle and inhabiting it at full operational speed, against a man who has lived inside it for 20 years, are two different educations. Rourke moved first. Second one. He came in with a forward entry, covering the distance in a single committed step, the right hand extended in what the men in the front rows recognized as the opening of a judo grip. It was technically correct. The positioning of the elbow, the angle of the wrist, the rotation of the shoulder, it was exactly what 11 years of training looked like when it functioned. It did not land. The man in the white undershirt slipped it. Not backward, not sideways. He stepped inside it, at a diagonal, at an angle that took him off the centerline without creating distance. He was closer now than he had been before the movement began. This was the adjustment that changed the nature of what followed. Colonel Whitfield's hands pressed harder into the surface of the table. Second two. Rourke adapted, which is what trained men do. He abandoned the grip and brought the left elbow through in a close-range strike that had power in it. This was not a beginner's response. He had read the inside position and responded correctly. The elbow strike is the most direct solution to the problem of a man who has removed your entry angle. It did not connect. The head was no longer where it had been. A slight movement, timed to the telegraphing of Rourke's shoulder, had taken it 2 inches to the left. 2 inches was all that was required. The elbow passed through air. The momentum carried Rourke's left side through and slightly forward, and in that fraction of a second, his balance was distributed incorrectly. Master Sergeant Pruitt exhaled through his nose without opening his mouth. Second 3. The right hand came next. A short, compact rear hand strike that had the weight of 217 pounds behind it, and the decision of a man who had committed to the only remaining option. Rourke was not panicking. He was solving the problem with the tools he had left. The strike had real intent behind it. The men watching understood this. This was not a man going through motions. This was a man fighting. It stopped, not because it was blocked, because the left hand, moving on a path that no one in the formation had tracked until it arrived, caught the wrist at the exact moment of extension and redirected it, using Rourke's own forward momentum to alter the trajectory by 11 degrees. 11 degrees was enough. The punch went past the right ear. Rourke was now extended forward, with his weight committed and his balance already shifting in the wrong direction. Vic Rinaldi set the pen down on the notebook without clicking the cap. He stared at the ground in front of the platform. This was the moment. The finishing position had presented itself. Any of 3 techniques available at that distance and angle would have ended the encounter with irreversible clarity. A rear leg sweep to the planted foot would have taken Rourke to the ground. An upward strike to the exposed chin, controlled or otherwise, would have concluded the conversation. A controlled throw using Rourke's existing momentum required almost nothing at that point. Physics was already doing half the work. None of those things happened. The right hand, open, came forward and stopped. It stopped 1 inch from the side of Dale Rourke's jaw and remained there for a moment that lasted less than a second in clock time and much longer in every other kind. The hand was open. The palm was facing inward. It was held absolutely still. There was enough force behind it, positioned as it was, to have caused significant and lasting damage. Every man in the formation who understood what he was looking at understood this simultaneously. Rourke understood it too. He stopped. He straightened. He looked at the hand beside his face and then at the man holding it there. And then the hand was withdrawn, and the arm was extended differently, the elbow bent, the palm turned upward. It was offered, not demanded. The crowd was completely silent. 2,000 men. Not a voice. Not a movement. The wind moved across the parade ground and lifted the edge of someone's collar in the 3rd row and settled it back. The flagpoles at the north edge of the base made the thin metal sound they make when the cable moves against the pole in cold air. That was all. That was the only sound on 2,000 acres of operational military property, for what the men present would later estimate as 11 seconds, though in their memories it would grow longer. Rourke looked at the extended hand. He had a choice in front of him that was visible to everyone watching, even those who could not hear what was being said. The fork in the road has no hidden branches. A man either takes the offered hand or he does not, and both choices say everything that needs to be said about who he is when the outcome is not in his favor. He took it. He shook it. Not formally. Not for the audience. He shook it the way men shake hands when they have understood something that cannot be undone by pretending it did not happen. Rourke leaned forward. He said something. Nobody in the formation heard the words. Nobody in the formation was meant to. The 2 men were close enough that the exchange required no volume. Chuck Norris listened. He responded in 1 sentence. Rourke stepped back. His expression did not change, but something in the way he carried his shoulders for the rest of that morning was different from how they had been before. What was said in those 11 seconds between them, only the 2 men ever fully knew. But the version that passed through the special operations community in the years that followed, through debriefs and deployments and the specific long dinners that happen at the end of things, went like this. Rourke had said, "I owe you an apology." And the man in the white undershirt had said, "Save it for your students. Tell them what you learned today." The shoulder touch happened as he was leaving. Not from 1 man. From 3. Colonel Whitfield crossed the distance from the table and put his hand on the right shoulder briefly as the figure in the white undershirt walked past. He did not say anything. He did not need to. Master Sergeant Pruitt, who had trained seriously enough to understand exactly what he had witnessed, did the same. A third man, a young corporal from the 2nd Platoon who had grown up watching films in a small town in Alabama, reached out as the figure passed and touched the left sleeve above the elbow. Just for a moment, the way you confirm that something is real before you commit it to memory. The story moved the way these stories move. Not through official channels. Not through reports. Through the men themselves, in the weeks that followed, as they rotated back to their own units and bases and training facilities. It moved through dojos in Virginia and California and Texas. It moved through the informal networks where serious practitioners exchange information about what actually works and who actually is what they claim to be. It shed details as it traveled, the way stories do. The crowd size contracted in some tellings and expanded in others. The duration of the confrontation varied between 22 and 90 seconds depending on who was telling it and what point they were trying to make. Some versions added a second exchange that did not happen. Some dropped Rourke's name and made him anonymous, which changed the moral of the story, but not its core. What did not change across any version of the story, in any telling, in any context, was the open hand. Every account of that morning, from the most embellished to the most precise, preserved the detail of the palm turned upward rather than the fist delivered. That image was load-bearing. It was the thing the story could not stand without. Dale Rourke returned to operational service and completed 2 more deployments. He retired as a Master Chief. In the last year before his retirement, he restructured the hand-to-hand combat curriculum for his unit's training program, and added a section he called Distance and Patience. The men under him did not know, and he did not tell them, where that section came from, but the section existed, and it was the section his students remembered longest. Chuck Norris said nothing publicly about the morning at Fort Bragg. He did not recount it in interviews. He did not reference it in the memoir he published later. He left no record of the exchange except the one that lives in the memories of the men who were standing in that formation on a cold Tuesday morning in March when the temperature was 31 degrees and the sky was the color of old concrete. This is what the story teaches, not that one man was better than another man, though on that morning, in that space, one man was. The story teaches something narrower and more durable. The story teaches that certainty is an investment, and like all investments it exposes the holder to the full risk of being wrong in front of witnesses. The man who performs his skill in a controlled demonstration is showing you what is possible under ideal conditions. The man who holds his hand still 1 inch from your face is showing you something different. He is showing you what is possible when the conditions are yours to set. The distance between those 2 demonstrations is the actual education. What Rourke carried out of Fort Bragg that morning was not embarrassment. Embarrassment is what men feel when they have pretended to something they were not. Rourke had pretended to nothing. He had been genuinely capable and genuinely wrong about the ceiling of his capability, which is a more useful lesson than most men receive in a lifetime of training. The story a man tells about another man, before he has stood in front of that man and asked the question with his body, is not a story. It is a hypothesis. Fort Bragg was where the hypothesis was tested. This is the only laboratory that matters. Next week, we examine the morning in 1981 when Bruce Lee's former student arrived at a competition in Los Angeles and found Chuck Norris already seated at the judge's table, and what happened when that student decided the judge's table was not where the real judgment would be rendered.